Okay, I started the recording of the lecture, and I think we can start. So, first of all, welcome to this course that is focusing on how to read and write a scientific paper. I'm very delighted of your interest because I did not predict so many attendance, and actually we have about more than 300 students who subscribed. I see that now there are 40 people attending online, and of course, the number of attending people is lower than the number of the people who subscribe, but still, 40 people is a very good number. So I'm very delighted of your interest and of course your enthusiasm, because if you are attending this lecture, it means that you are motivated to make a significant experience, and I'm very glad of that. Actually, when I planned this course, my intention was to also cooperate with you. I see indeed that you are too many for making a one-to-one cooperation or even a group cooperation. So I think that we will need to wait how many people will attend also the next lectures before deciding altogether how we can make our interaction more fruitful with respect to a simple virtual listening of what I'm saying or exchanging messages on the chat. For sure, you can use the chat, but I would like to make something more entertaining in order to strengthen our interaction. We will see what is possible. For now, let's start today by just reminding you that attendance is not compulsory. So you can take the final quiz and therefore get your badge, even if you didn't attend the lectures. And it's also not checked whether or not you are watching the videos. So don't feel under pressure, because your dedication to this course and this interaction with me is completely up to you. So you decide what is the level of dedication and what is the effort that you want to dedicate to this course. And of course, you will get education, information, and skills accordingly. Before we start, I just want to give you a brief introduction of me, and in order to clarify to you what is my expertise, what is my background, what are my skill, and what is my experience then. Because I think it's extremely important if you want to get the max from a teacher that you know the background and preparation of the teacher themselves. So I am an engineer, actually. I am professor at the University of Bologna, as you know, and my background is civil engineering. And but my research field is hydrology, the science of the water cycle. So I make research on everything is related to water, and in particular, interaction between water and humans. So I am interested in making research on floods, droughts, water resources management, and water resources prediction. And this is, all of these topics are tightly related to climate change. So I am making also some research activity on the impact of climate change on the water cycle. I am an environmental scientist then, and in particular a geoscientist. I call myself a scientist or a researcher because my main activity in the university is related to research. And of course, beyond research, besides research, there is also education. I am teaching quite a lot. And the so-called third mission, which is public engagement. I was also in the past quite involved in university administrations. So I used to say that my activity in the university is standing over four legs, but the main ones are education, teaching, and research. I am required to make research. Any university professor is required to teach and is also required to make research. So this is a requirement, but it's also a passion. And this is why I say that currently most of my time is dedicated to research. I would say that I am planning to dedicate to research 80% of my time. And therefore, during my career, which started about 20, so I got into the university, I started my PhD in 1993, and I got into the university as a researcher in 1997. So unfortunately, I'm working in the university. I have been working in the university for almost 30 years already. And therefore, my experience is mainly related to writing papers, scientific papers, because this is an activity that is necessary if we want to make our research known. When I learned of the opportunity by the university to teach these soft skill courses, I immediately submitted a proposal for teaching how to read and write a scientific paper, because I think that this is an information that is very useful to students, because scientific papers are not written by top scientists only. I mean, there are many scientists working in the university, because if you think of the commitment of the professors to make research, it means that only in the University of Bologna there are about 3,000 professors, and therefore there are 3,000 researchers. And therefore it is essential. There are many people that write scientific papers, and it may happen also to you, because it's not only the professors who make research, but also the students. Maybe during the master program, the master degree, the students may develop some research activity, in particular if they are motivated. As an engineer, I had the opportunity to make research activity, but also some professional activity, consultancy. Actually, I make some also consultancy activity, but only on the level of research, meaning that I serve through the university also as a consultant for public administrations for solving challenges that require some scientific advance in order to find new solutions. So you have an overview of my background now. And if you want to know more, because I don't want to spend much time on that, you can refer to my website. Let me share my screen at this stage, and then I will show you where you can find my website. So now you should see my screen now. If you don't see it, let me know. And this is my website, which it's found at this web address, albertomontanari.it, www.albertomontanari.it. Let me check the chat once again, because I want to make sure that I'm not missing any message from you. Yes, okay. And just 1 second that I close the mailer, otherwise you see continuously the pop-up from my mailbox. Okay, so this is my website, and here you can see under research what kind of research I'm doing and what kind of teaching activities I'm doing. I take this opportunity to show to you that if you click on teaching here, and then you get a list of the courses that I'm teaching now, and the first link is related to our course. So lecture notes for how to read and write a scientific paper. This is a way to access our lecture notes. And there is a second way to access them, which is probably the most indicated for you, and it's Virtuale. If you go to virtuale.unibo.it, you see that there is a page and that you can find in the list of the courses you are subscribed to. There is a page where you can see the information and the tutorial documents. Just 1 second that I need to move the chat on the other screen because I want to keep it under my eyes. Okay, very good. So as I said, information about the course. It's important that you understand where you can get any news, any information related to our joint experience, to this adventure. And first of all, the web page of the course in Virtuale, and then in my website, because they are mirrored. So what you find in Virtuale is the most extended information, which is almost all replicated in my website. So I'm referring only to Virtuale now. Just would like to say that you have also a copy in my website. What's the difference? Why I make this copy? Because my website is open to the world, and Virtuale is open only to students of the University of Bologna. And I am motivated to make everything I teach publicly available, not only to students, but to the whole world. And this is also good for students because it means that you can access any information even after your experience as a student has been completed, but still the information remains there. You cannot access Virtuale anymore, but hopefully you can continue getting access to my website. So, as I said, information, and in particular the calendar, I assume that you already know it. We have 3 synchronous lectures. Synchronous means that I am teaching while you're listening, and I can also reply to your questions over the chat, and maybe that we can also have a deeper interaction. And these 3 lectures, synchronous, are planned for April 13 today, April 27, and May 11. And then there are a couple of, let's say, 2-3 videos, not just a couple, 2-3 videos, and which present my asynchronous lectures. By the way, the first of these videos is already available. I see a question on the chat. Yes, I will reply to you soon. As I said, the video is already available. If you scroll down, you have the first lecture, you see here, April 13. And what you see is a bit different from what I see, because, of course, I am the editor of this web page, and therefore you see a pen here, which is for me and not visible to you. So don't focus on the details, just on the content. So you see that today there is, for the lecture of today, there is a link to the slides that I will use soon. And then there are 2 questionnaires which I will use today, which allow for a deeper interaction between us. If you go further down, you see asynchronous lectures, how to read a scientific paper. And here there is the first one, the first asynchronous lecture. It's a video that I invite you to watch after today and before the next lecture. So if you look at this material in chronological order, you are required indeed to look at this video after the first lecture. This video is linked here, I think, in YouTube. Let me click over it and we will see. And click on here, let's see. Okay, this is YouTube, as you see, so that's fine. And then you can start watching the video. This first video is about 1 hour long, 68 minutes. I go back to Virtuale then. And sorry, I closed it instead of going back. So I go back to Virtuale. Here we are. My course is how to read and write a scientific paper. Under this first video, you see that there are 2 example papers. And the first one is the paper that I am reading during the first video. And so you may want to download it while watching the video. But anyway, in the video, you have the instructions to download it. So this is something that is available for you, but you can also find the paper over the web. Very good. There is a second example paper which will be the subject of the second video that is not yet available. Okay, and then there is something hidden to you, don't worry, and then there is the second lecture, how to read and write a scientific paper, April 27. And here there is already the slide available for your download. There is no more material available because I am developing the material together with the tutor. and the tutor is Dr. Seracini. And then I'll make this additional material, additional slides, additional videos available later on. So let's focus on today's lecture. But yeah, I forgot to say one important thing. Here in Virtuale, you will find at the end of the story, a little bit before the end of the story, the quiz that you will need to complete in order to get your badge. It will be made available after the last lecture. So the last lecture is May 11. And so I think around May 20, the quiz will be open. Before that, I will give you some ideas, some examples of questions that you may find into the quiz. The quiz can be repeated anytime as you want, at any time, but before July 24, 2026. So you need, be careful of that. You need to take the quiz before that date. I'm not allowed to keep the quiz accessible after July 24, 2026. And therefore, just be sure I will clearly write in the website, I will send you a message, be sure to complete it before that date. In the quiz, there is a threshold to get the badge, a threshold of marks. And of course, as I said, you can try as many times as you want and until you reach the threshold. Hopefully, I mean, it's not meant to be a difficult quiz. It's meant to be just a way for you of checking your preparation. And it's a self-assessment more than a test to pass the exam. So hopefully you will not need to take it many times. And I don't think also that this preparing for this quiz will require you a lot of time to study. Anyway, during this joint travel, I will be available for you to give clarification, any kind of question you may have. You can step it into the chat. And if you have more logistic questions or more personal questions, you can write an email to me. You know how to reach me. And you can also use the forum in Virtuale if you think that you have a question that is of general interest. Now, I got already a question in the chat. Is this course good also for human sciences? This is a good question because I got several emails from students or candidate students asking me what's the benefit that I can gain from this course, and is it indeed indicated for some specific disciplines? Regarding this question, I would say that yes, for any discipline that is presenting the results typically over papers, I would say that this is an appropriate experience, education, information that may be useful to you, in particular for human science. When I use example papers, I will refer more to, let's say, pure science, like mathematics, like medicine, like engineering, because, of course, I'm more expert, and therefore I am more efficient in referring to this paper. But I could use also papers dealing with psychology, with anything, or history of art, and of course I am less entitled to talk about them, but I mean, the scientific papers are written according to a format that is quite standard, and also the writing styles, and in particular the skills that you need to read and write a paper are more or less standard. So my reply to your question, yes, definitely. And the reply to the question, what's the benefit that I can gain? This is a benefit that mainly enriches your CV. When you get your degree, whatever degree it is, your CV, of course, it's still at the beginning, and you have completed your university curriculum, your educational curriculum. But of course, people are also looking for something more. When you stand for a job interview, or when people are evaluating if your background is useful for them, of course, the more is included in your CV in terms of expertise, in terms of skills, and the better it is. This is why I tell to my students, don't forget to learn digital skills, don't forget to learn computer science, because these are skills that are increasingly required also for human sciences. And therefore, the fact that you have some background on reading scientific paper, writing scientific paper, is something that makes your CV more attractive. And therefore, in my opinion, the cost-benefit balance that you get attending this course is favorable to you. You will see that the effort, as I already said, it's not so important. I think that this is enough as an introduction. If you feel that I am missing to provide some preliminary information, let me know. And you can write on the chat, or you can write an email. I prefer if you write on the chat, because if we talk about information regarding the course, it's something that may be interesting to everybody. And now let me start with the first PowerPoint presentation. If you click here, Introduction, Scientific Papers and their Structure, then you get to a download. Click here to download the PowerPoint presentation. And I'm not downloading it because it's already open in my PC, and the presentation is here. Okay, and I would like to thank Dr. Marco Seracini, because it helped me to put these slides together. Let me just clarify that I had previous experiences in teaching how to read and write a scientific paper, mainly delivered through short courses at scientific conferences. This is the first time that I attempt to put together an articulated and longer teaching material. And my intention, when I thought about the structure of these documents, of these tutorials, was to try to provide something that is innovative with respect to what you already can find over the web. Over the web, there is a lot of information, and you can also get a lot of information from artificial intelligence. But of course, what makes really creative an effort like this one is the effort to try to propose something that is innovative, or something that proposes an innovative synthesis, or something that proposes a really recent trend in writing scientific papers. Remember that the scientific publishing arena and the scientific publishing marketplace is radically evolving, and very rapidly during these times. So I tried to prepare something that is really up to date. But before I start, I would like to invite you, and then we need to go back to Virtuale, to compile in a couple of minutes this questionnaire. Let me go back to the first page. If you go to the first page of our course, there is a link to opening questions. If I click over it, I cannot see anything because I have the teacher role. But if you click over it, and I go back to the previous page, it's opening questions. And the link is, let me put it in the chat, and copy link. I put the link here. 1 second. Okay, because I need to get closer to the screen. Here it is. If you click there, you should get the quiz. If you can, it's just very short 3 questions. And if you complete it soon, by a couple of minutes, it will be interesting to look at your replies to that, in order to get a kind of picture of your interest and your motivation and your background. And it is also interesting that you confirm to me that the quiz is accessible, okay? And it's also a good way for me to test it. Okay, let's in a couple of minutes I will check your replies, and now let me go back to the presentation. Here it is, and let me start while you compile the quiz with an introduction to the role of scientific papers. If we want to get the best from a scientific paper, we need to understand what's the motivation for writing a scientific paper and what the scientists expect to get from writing it. Scientific papers are related to scientific knowledge and is something that is continuously evolving during the whole history of the human species. In the past, of course, our understanding of, in general, our general understanding of things was not recorded, was not written down. It was just orally vehiculated, transmitted from generation to generation. But then, starting from already old times, humans started to write down the results of their increasing knowledge, of their studies. And usually we see that this knowledge develops not all at once, but through a gradual evolution. And it's a cumulative process in which we humans usually build over previous work. Sometimes we only remember the name of the man who reached the final conclusion. We remember the name of Einstein for the theory of relativity, and unfortunately we forget the contribution by all the other people before Einstein who built the basis for Einstein, the people who built the basis and wrote the papers which Einstein read in order to propose finally the relativity theory. And indeed, researchers usually rely on existing literature to formulate new questions, refine methods, and question previously obtained results. Indeed, science progresses by proving that previous results were not complete or maybe also wrong. And each paper contributes then like a small brick in building the house and of scientific knowledge. And also students, they may need to refer to scientific papers, in particular if students are interested in the recent developments. Of course, students may refer to books, but usually books, what they do is to review scientific papers, to build over scientific papers, to present a synthesis which is particularly fit for education, understandable and organized in a systematic way, but this process requires time. To translate scientific knowledge into books requires time. I say books, but it may be also web publications, but to make a synthesis requires time. And this is the reason why students sometimes need to go beyond books and study scientific papers. Of course, there are also some breakthroughs, some relevant discoveries, but there is also at the basis a number of incremental advances rather than a single discovery. So this is the reason why also students may write significant papers, because it's a cumulative knowledge that evolves over time. And an example is what you read in the last sentence. The development of vaccines or new medical treatments is the result of decades of research, with each study adding new insights and improvements. In principle, everything is nice, everything is positive then. Actually, of course, in this process, there are some hiccups, there are some problems sometimes. So some papers are proved to be wrong, some papers are intentionally not very correct from quantitative point of view, and some of them may be even unethical to some extent. So it's important to try to understand what is behind it, what is the whole manufacture of the paper, the process of writing, the process of getting a paper published. This is what we are looking for with this course. Okay, before I go to the next slide, and where I want to introduce what is a scientific paper, let me see the results of your opening questions. Of course, it's anonymous, it's anonymized, only statistics are presented. So view all, all responses. So have you ever read a scientific paper? Your responses, we got 40 responses, 98% is yes, amazing. And was it difficult? The majority of you in the scale of difficulty rated a difficulty of 4, which means that you found it challenging. Do you think you might write one someday? 95% says yes. Okay, very interesting. Thank you very much for responding to this. And you still can respond if you didn't have the opportunity. It is helpful for me to understand my audience. So it looks like you are quite qualified, and meaning that you are sincerely motivated to, as I anticipated earlier. Okay, let's go back here and let me go back to my presentation. Oops. Okay, what is a scientific paper? It is a document that communicates research finding and research studies of any discipline. I mean, of course, we are talking of science here, but we can reconnect to science also human sciences, many other disciplines. And it is presenting this result, scientific paper, in a clear, should be clear, systematic, and pay attention, reproducible way. This requirement of reproducibility is relatively recent. I mean, the emphasis is relatively recent. There is recently a strong emphasis on reproducibility. Why? Because the number of scientific papers is increased a lot in recent years. As I said, the publishing arena is changed a lot. And therefore, with an increasing number of papers, there is also an increasing need of making a check of the trustability of these papers. And therefore, reproducibility is essential. This is why, as we will see, recently several scientific journals require that the data supporting the analysis are made available, because the purpose of the paper is not only to present findings, to claim findings, but also to explain how the findings were obtained. So, as I said, many journals require the data made available. Some journals require also the software that have been used, if any, to be made available, so that any reader can reproduce the results. Indeed, in the past couple of years, I made an effort to make all of my papers completely reproducible. It is a huge effort, because, one thing is to make something for your own understanding. I mean, if I write a code, or if I apply equations, or if I make a review of the literature with a method that only myself has to understand, it's much easier than making other people able to repeat my experience. It requires indeed a lot of effort, but in terms of visibility and in terms of trustability of my results is extremely important. Typically, a scientific paper addresses 4 fundamental components. There is a research question, which is the problem that I am trying to solve, or the hypothesis that I am trying to test. And this defines the purpose and the direction of the research. Example of a research question: how long does it take for a body in the void to reach the ground from a height of 100 meters. We know that it's already solved, but it's an example that Galileo tried to resolve by making experiments and then formulating a theory. Second essential component of a scientific paper, a method, the approach, experimental design, or analytical framework used to answer the research question. And this section ensures transparency and reproducibility. Look, the research question may also be a review of the literature. So, what is the essential literature addressing this specific kind of problem? And then the method is the explanation of how you reviewed the papers, because I mean, currently you have to browse millions of papers. When you want millions, it's too exaggerated. Thousands of papers if you want to present a review of a specific question. So what is the method that you follow to make the review? And then another fundamental component is the data and the results obtained through the research process. We can call it evidence. So presentation of the results, and then the conclusions, the interpretation of the results, including their implication and the explanation why the results are relevant. And you can find these components in many types of scientific paper, in particular in medicine. And there are several research questions that are addressed through a method by presenting results and demonstrating why the results are relevant to address the question. This is, of course, in an ideal world, okay? But together, these elements create a logical narrative that allows other researchers to understand, evaluate, and use. So indeed, when I read a paper, usually I start from a research question that I have, and my first question then is, what are the relevant papers that I can use to address my research question? And then I look over the web and I read them. Given the high number of papers that are relevant to any research question, it becomes extremely important that you are efficient in browsing the literature. This is why we are learning here how to read a scientific paper. Because, of course, let's suppose that you have maybe a reduced number, like 30 papers to read. You cannot take 1 week for each of them. You need to make a first selection by dedicating at most 15 minutes to each paper. And then a second selection by dedicating at most 1 hour to each paper. And finally, you select 3 papers that are very relevant to you, and you take 1 week each in order to fully understand what's presented there. And of course, this workflow needs some skills, some experience, and this is what we are discussing here. What's the difference between science and media? It's obvious, okay? And we say that scientific papers are for scientific development, while media is for dissemination, providing public engagement, providing information to the person in the street. And then the kind of information that you can get from a scientific paper is very different from what you can get from a media. The media is like a YouTube video, like a newspaper. The media is simpler to understand. They need to vehiculate the concept in a simple manner that is accessible to the large public. And usually they don't have to undergo peer review, which means evaluation of the methods, of the results by independent researchers. Remember this keyword, peer review. It means that the paper is assessed, is browsed, studied, and assessed by scientists who have the same level of experience or higher, and they have the required level of experience to say this is innovative, this is wrong, this is good, this deserves to be published rather than not. So peer review is a key difference between scientific papers and the media. Remember, not all scientific papers are peer-reviewed. This is something that we will learn and we have to recognize. Okay, but this is a fundamental difference. And another fundamental difference between scientific papers and the media is, as I anticipated, the difficulty in understanding. Usually, a media is accessible to the person in the street. The scientific paper requires some expertise to read it and to profit from the results. And what is the consequence of that? That the scientific papers are at least expected to be more reliable than the media because they are peer-reviewed. And the media reports, because also they need to be more accessible, can sometimes be incomplete, oversimplified, or even misleading, especially when complex results are used, are summarized to short and attention-grabbing messages. It's very important also to look at the media. I often look at the media for the topics I am interested in from a scientific point of view, because understanding what the media report is essential for a scientist in order to understand how the public may perceive the results the scientist is presenting. Okay, so let's be completely aware of the difference. Next slide. Before moving forward, I think at this stage I would like to make a short break, and it's let's meet again at 6 sharp, and I will move forward up to 6:45. I prefer to make the break because, listening to the same person for so long, 1 hour and a half, is demanding. I know that. And meanwhile, I will read your question in the chat. I am stopping the registration, so you will find 2 videos for today's lecture. And I am also stopping the microphone and the webcam. See you in 12 minutes from now.